August 19th Select Board meeting to order. Before we begin, I'm going to confirm member access. I'll go through the Select Board members first in the order in which I see you. Jason Bridges.
Here.
Christy Ferrantella.
Here.
Melissa Murphy.
Here.
Oh, you know, Matt's not on yet, so we'll check in with him when he comes on. I will also confirm town staff members in the order in which I see you. Ken Beaugrand.
Here.
Brian Turbot.
Present.
Erica Mooney.
In attendance.
Amy Baxter.
Here.
Libby Gibson.
In attendance.
Karen McGonigal.
Here.
Roberto Santamaria.
Here.
And then we also have Martha Turk here as our guest in regard to the census.
Present.
Okay. Good evening. This open meeting of the Select Board is being conducted remotely consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the Governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you will find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. We are now using Zoom webinar for meetings, which allows for the public to participate in the meeting as an attendee. Attendees must register to participate. The registration link is unique to the meeting. The registration link can be found in the description of the Nantucket Government TV YouTube live feed for the meeting. People registering to be an attendee must use their names, otherwise they will not be allowed to participate in the discussion. Attendees will join in listening mode. They can click the raise hand button if they wish to speak. The chair will call on those who have raised their hands in the order they were raised. If you do not have an audio capable device, the Q&A button can be used to type a question. We do not use YouTube chat any longer. Any questions that cannot be verbally asked must use the Q&A function, and all questions are directed through the chat. For Zoom meetings, please note that the meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to share your screen of your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials for the meeting have been provided on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along. Meeting ground rules. As we turn to the first item on the agenda, I, as the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, we'll go through any members who wish to speak and any public that wishes to speak on the appropriate items. Please remember to keep your phone or computer muted when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly to help generate accurate minutes. Please wait for the chair to yield the floor to you before speaking. And finally, we will be taking all votes via roll call. We have one change to the agenda this evening. Number 3, under citizen departmental requests, has been continued. And other than that, I believe we will accept the agenda as written. And I will turn to announcements by the town manager and Martha Turk.
Thank you. Martha is going to give a little census update. And then our only other announcement is that there are no board meetings the next 2 weeks, Wednesday, August 22nd or Wednesday, September 2nd, but we'll be back at it on Wednesday, September 9th. And also Tucker Holland had an announcement. Is he out there? Or, yeah, maybe he's not on yet. He's
in as an attendee, so I'm going to pull him in.
Okay. It's pretty quick.
Hello?
We can hear you, Tucker.
Thanks very much, Libby. So I just wanted, as the board knows, the Affordable Housing Trust has issued a request for proposals seeking properties to put into a year-round rental program known as neighborhood toward the state mandated 10% affordability requirement. Interested in this program, there will be a public information session via Zoom next Thursday, August 27th at 5:30 p.m. The login instructions will be posted in advance on the Affordable Housing Trust webpage of the Town of Nantucket website. Thank you.
Thank you, Tucker.
Thanks, Tucker. And just one thing. So Tucker, that's for people who want to respond to the RFP?
Yes, anyone who is thinking about responding to the RFP or has questions in general about Neighborhood First, really anything, we're there to, answer your question. But it is intended primarily for folks who are thinking about putting in a response.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will turn to the COVID-19 weekly update. Are there any opening comments from the select board?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Martha was going to give her.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I skipped over. Sorry, Martha.
That's okay. Thank you. I just wanted to respond to some questions that were raised in last week's meeting, and I hopefully give you some background that will address those. So most of you know that census takers are out in the field now, following up with households that haven't yet responded to the census. In some cases, they're following up with households who have completed the census to either verify or clarify information provided. And they don't know that because Title 13 protects the privacy of those who respond. So they don't know that that's necessarily the purpose of their visit. And they do know that that can be frustrating for everyone. But it's an important part of getting a complete and accurate count. So I've been in contact with some census takers on the island and also the supervisor for them here on Nantucket. They're working very hard to make sure that all year-round and seasonal households are counted. And if you're not home when they come, they'll leave a notice with important information about how to respond online. They want everyone to know that their efforts are not meant to be intrusive and that every household and every resident counts. And the population totals from this census will determine funding and dictate representation, as well as the number of electoral votes we have in Massachusetts for the next 10 years. So the US Census only takes place in years that end with 0. It is different from the annual town census. It's a critical tool, and it's an opportunity to make sure that every voice is heard and that the vibrancy of our community is both recognized and represented. Again, this is my standard closing, 2020census.gov, choose your language, take the census online today. You can get help from a census taker too. They're local people who have taken training, including for COVID-19 safety protocols. They will have official identification and devices, and they will be knocking on doors between now and September 30th, which is the final response deadline. So if anyone has any further questions about that or anything else, I'm happy to answer them.
Anyone have anything for Martha? Martha, thank you so much for being here again.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Next, we will turn to the COVID-19 weekly update. Are there any opening comments from the select board or any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, I will turn to the public health director.
Good evening. How's everyone doing today? So we're doing well. And just right off the bat, we've crossed the 5,000 testing mark as of this last week. 1,800 of that has been done through what they're calling the CastNet, which is the asymptomatic testing, which is great. That's where the bulk of our tests, our positives are coming from. And the town has funded over 294 tests. The grant funding is a little behind, so the numbers that you see are a couple days behind us. But we expect this to be well over 300 this week. So we've just seen a few new cumulative cases here and there. All of them have been caught through the asymptomatic testing. Well, one was not, was showing symptoms. And what we're finding is it's the same thing. You know, people are bringing it in from off island and they're getting tested here, and often they're leaving within the next day or two. So, but we did see that the tracing is slowing down. I mean, not the tracing, the testing is slowing down. We continue to test about 80 to 100 per day on average, but over the last 7 days or so, we've been seeing a small tapering off in the list that's coming in. As far as the metrics go, we're still showing green across the board. It's great news. We're trying to keep the numbers low. I'm just going to go real quick through them. We're still under 1% on the total testing rate. We did spike really quickly up to a 2% on the testing of 2 days ago, which is when these numbers are based. But that's simply because we only tested 47 people. You know, it's the relic of small numbers, just as always. And then, but over the last 7 days, over the 7-day average, only 3 positives out of 689 tests. So we're in great shape. And we're still really low on the death. We still have only had the 1 death. So really quick, since we're crossing that 50-person threshold, I have said that I'd be starting to add more demographics as we go along. So now that we've hit that threshold, that we can start releasing more data on. So age-wise, 50% of them are 39 or younger, or between 20 and 39, actually, not even or younger. That's our primary issue. And what we've been running into is that 61% of all the cases that we've seen here on island are male. So approximately 2/3. As far as the state metrics go, they actually stopped doing the county rankings. If you remember, I used to have a chart on here that had all the countings from the state, all the counties from the state, and all of our cumulative count there. They stopped putting that in that chart in their daily report. They didn't see that it was too value added. It was value added for us as a comparative structure and demonstration, but it wasn't valued for them throughout the state. We're getting the occasional criticism from so-called epidemiological experts here and there, stating how while the state is releasing so much information, how come we're not releasing this information at the local level? Well, I've explained that many times as to why we can't. And HIPAA regulation, I put the links up on the presentation, and all of our metrics have been based on the state information. That's been transparent from the very beginning. And this is what the information shows. If anyone wants to look at the raw data that the state has on cases and demographics and income and jobs and things like that, it's on mass.gov. And the on the COVID-19 page, you click on the yellow button at the top and it'll take you to where it says the dashboard. You click on the dashboard. Right under the daily dashboard, it shows you where it says raw data. You can click on that raw data. It sends you a zip file and you can do as much analysis on it as you want. They're separated from age, sex, location, occupation, the ethnicity groups, deaths, everything. All that data is there. It just doesn't go as granular as some of our critics would like. The best part of this map is that it's still showing us as white. Yes, this is the map from last week because the newest map was released today. I haven't had a chance to look at it because it was released 15 minutes ago. But we expect that to also show us as white, which leads us to the discussions on maintaining vigilance. I only have the one bullet point here, but last week we had a conversation with the school committee. I wanted to call it the school board. And at the school committee, there was a lot of discussion about the pros and cons and the safety of reopening. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn this off so we can have that open discussion here while I'm looking at everyone. And the pros and cons is one of the most important parts is when we have it written down, there's a written protocol. Dr. Hallett has been phenomenal at the work that they've done, and the Teachers Association has done a great job at providing feedback to all of that. But not everyone's going to be happy. There's that, if you look at a normal distribution of a curve, I call it the 2 sigma rule. 2 standard deviations from the mean means that we're covering 66% of the population, which is 2/3. But the people at the 2 fringes, at the 2 edges, anything from 4 sigmas or above, you're just not going to get everyone. Somebody's going to be upset on both sides. So what we're trying to do is get somewhere in the middle. As I mentioned to the school committee Thursday, we're not asking everyone to be entirely 100% comfortable before they enter the schools. We just have to be reasonably comfortable with the work that we're seeing and the protocols that we're seeing. There's always school choice, and the hybrid model that I think that the school has chosen is probably our best choice for success, both for our special needs and English language learners, all the way through to our general school population. So I support the protocols that were written, and I support the protocols that the schools are trying to put in, but the proof will be in the practice. Practice is the hardest part, and we just have to maintain vigilance and maintain our proper distancing and our protocols. Otherwise, I believe we're in good shape. I'll probably redo the modeling report that I did a few months ago. I believe that was May, just to summarize what we saw in the summer. I can get that is sometime towards the end of September. And what we want to pay attention to is moving into the fall is we'll probably see a couple days, maybe even a week or 2 of no cases, and then we'll get another case as people go off island and bring it back. Things like that. So we're going to see cases tick up. We're going to have cases, just like Dr. Shaw, Gary Shaw and Dr. Pearl have said. We have said that we're going to see cases coming out. We just have to be prepared for that. The most important part is to stop the spread once we see those cases. And with that, I just wanted to keep it nice and short, and I'll take any questions.
Jason, go ahead.
Thank you. Roberto, thanks again for your report every week. I always look forward to it. On the one map of the age and gender, is that breakdown pretty similar to the Cape and the Islands in Massachusetts? Or anything that stands out that says like, whoa, that's, maybe you can't speak on it, but whoa, that's really different here?
No, it's pretty much the same thing we're seeing across the country. What we're running into is, it's really funny when you look at the 2 maps, the 2 pie charts, and you see 20 to 39 being 50% of our cases, and male to female being 2/3 to 1/3 of the cases. What's really kind of interesting when you look at it this way, you see that a lot of our male cases are clustering. When you start stratifying the data, which is what starts becoming interesting, the male cases start clustering in the older population. So the older all the cases from about 40 or above or so, I'll be able to start stratifying that and get that into our next report, our upcoming reports. You'll see that there's actually a higher caseload of males in the older population, and that's what's kind of driving that second chart of 61%. 61% being male. And the behavioral epidemiologists are kind of chalking that up to, in New England, kind of as awful as it sounds, kind of an entitlement factor, where that's the demographic that is the older white male is more likely to say, I have a constitutional right to not wear a mask, those arguments. So it's really kind of interesting. And over the more, once we hit that 50 case threshold and I can stratify the data a little bit more, I'll be able to get you a lot more graphs to show you, the visualizations to show you where all this falls.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Everything's going well.
We've done a phenomenal job. Nantucket has one of the lowest standardized incidence ratios in the country. When you look at the county rankings, we are in the lowest, in those lowest quarter tier, and I want to try to get even more data to show us where we are compared to the rest of the country. If you remember a lot of the older models that were thrown out there about Nantucket, and you might remember a specific report that we received in May showing that by this point we would have had 890 cases and over 50 deaths.
I was wondering what those numbers were. I didn't remember offhand.
Yeah, that model and that prediction was wildly inaccurate. And what Nantucket has really done with the select board and the board of health and the staff here, and the town administration staff and police, through working together and maintaining strict mitigation measures, we were able to flatten that curve to a point of true safety.
Thank you. Melissa, then Matt.
Thank you, Dawn. Roberto, and perhaps this will be more appropriate to talk about at the Board of Health meeting tomorrow, but I'm wondering if you or Amy have any feedback from restaurants on the vote we took to have the last call at 11:30, and what your observations have been about how that may or may not have affected behavior downtown late at night. And I'm also curious when and if we may want to revisit that as the population starts to shift. I'm thinking we'll probably have more seasonal residents here for a longer term, but maybe the 1 week vacation rentals, day trippers, weekend trippers are going to start to go down. So I'm curious on your observations on that. Thank you.
I'll take that. So originally when this came up and it was asked for as far as 11:30 last call and midnight, I just wanted to just back up that that request actually came from a good number of restaurants. That's not something we really kind of sat around and said, you know, we need to do this. We did speak about it because obviously the toughest times are later at night as folks are drinking quite a bit and not eating as much. So the feedback I got a lot of thank yous. Emails, honestly. There were a couple that weren't thrilled, but it really was more thank you for the support, because it really was difficult for a lot of them too as well. Of course, they can choose to close, but just making it consistent across the board was helpful. And then, you know, as far as my inspections, and others might be different, then some of the crowds more on Broad and other weren't as bad later. As well as I've seen so far. So that was just helpful. And now that the governor backed up last week or 2 weeks ago now and added food service is required, you know, it all kind of works together, you know. So the feedback on that has been good, and we'll see as we go into the fall. Obviously, we expect that it's going to be a different fall. There's a lot of people staying longer. They're going to be working from home from Nantucket and schooling their children here. So we'll keep a look at that. But so far, I think it's been helpful.
Thank you, Amy. Matt, you had your hand up.
Yeah. No, I've gone down a few nights and I've heard the same thing Amy said. Just in that regard, I think it's a lot calmer. I think the issue was sort of the younger patient out, you know, later, and I think this is sort of put a little more calmness into the entire situation down there. So that, you know, that's sort of the feedback there. I think when we look back at the models that were, you know, quote unquote wild long, we have to realize those had no mitigation in them, zero mitigation. And what was being asked was to put in model had different level of mitigation in aspect to see what we do. I think that I agree with Roberta really well, but I also have to emphasize we need to add it. The South is in trouble because they've been inside. We're about to go inside now. So it's going to be a question of airflow. It's going to be all those issues, which I'm sure the school and Roberta are working on. Those are going to be our crucial issues. This summer, I've spent a lot of time at the beach, a lot of time outside. Weather has been amazing, helped everybody. Very sort of careful in the to early winter not to the work. So that, I think I think that talked about, I think it was I sent it to Melissa, Roberto, Stephen, that what they do is they measure CO2 in rooms to know how much airflow, how much the air is turning over. If you're in a room, people, and you're breathing and it's not turning, it's going to be more CO2. And I thought that was an interesting way to test, how much, and Roberto can correct me if I'm wrong, but how much turnover is there? Is the air turning over in that room properly and safely, or is it not turning over? And it's hard to do it from a COVID standpoint, but you could do it from a CO2 standpoint, and the units cost about $100. So there's a lot of stuff like that that's happening that could give us a feeling of comfort when we start going inside and worrying about those things.
So, Matt, I think you were breaking up a little bit. I think you're talking about the schoolrooms.
Schoolrooms or interior restaurants or anywhere. I mean, it's going to be where there's gatherings of different people. I think that we get an idea whether the air is turning over or not.
Yeah, air turnover is definitely something that we looked into it at the schools. Diane O'Neill and Dr. Hallett did a really great job. They hired a consultant to look at room turnover rates, air turnover rates, and everything to make sure it meet the federal shelter standards, which is actually, because we use the schools as a shelter, it meets the shelter standards, not just your typical national school standard. And I remember that as far as the mitigation levels that we were talking about go, actually have the report open. It specifically says if we relax it to the state level mitigation, which we did, but Nantucket did a very good job through Forensia, Libby, NCTV. The chamber did a great job at pushing a lot of this information out. So and the select board and everyone did a great job at getting the education out to the members of our Nantucket community, our seasonal community that comes. And we really have to thank everyone for really trying as hard as they could to pay attention to mitigation standards.
I should just note, because we talked about it earlier in the agenda meeting, that the second meeting in September, we will be starting to have some discussion about fall events and what we're doing going forward with those. And let's see, Amy, did you have additional reports for us?
Well, I would give an update. Let's see. We've been continuing enforcement and health and myself and fire and going out when we can. There were fewer, I think, mask violations with the staffs of restaurants this week. And I went out and didn't really see anything too alarming. A couple things we dealt with on site, but people seem to be kind of in their flow with the restaurants. So nothing there. On Broad Street, we've added some barricades down and closed off South Beach Extension at 7 p.m. At night now. That juice bar is open back up again for nights. So we're going to see how that goes. So far, it's been fine. We'll be testing it this weekend. We had some bunching up in some groups kind of in that area, and they were asked to kind of move into the barricaded area or disperse. So just a couple of those incidents, but nothing crazy on that. So I'll take any questions, but nothing huge stands out in any of our inspections or anything thus far this week.
Thank you. Anybody have any additional questions for me tonight? Okay. I don't think there's anything new in terms of emergency orders. Do you guys have anything on your agenda for tomorrow? Okay. Any PIO updates?
Yep, just briefly. Just reading a little bit of this. As you mentioned, Madam Chair, we are trying to work out an agenda item for, I think we're talking about possibly September 16th-ish. And Christy, we're going to be getting in touch with you and Janet as to whether we should convene the Economic Recovery Task Force to talk about recommendations for stroll, Christmas tree lighting, and Halloween parade, and what the options might be on that. The group is also working on a follow-up from the spring survey to see what's changed over time and to get ideas as to how to support businesses through the fall and winter. We may need to ramp up public outreach on those things at that time. We're also discussing doing another more strategy-focused survey on how to support and diversify Nantucket's economy based on what we've learned over the past 6 months. Ability to work remotely, for example, growing need for better Wi-Fi and delivery services. Wi-Fi we'll hear about shortly from IT, remote work, things like that. And some just various economic development issues that may be emerging as a result of what people have had to, modify for work and business activities. That's about it.
Thank you. Anything else on COVID tonight?
Can I mention one quick thing, Roberto? Maybe you said this. The seasonal health inspector. Did you mention that?
No, I did not. Thank you, Libby. So we've offered and hired the seasonal inspector position to Madison Humphrey. She was one of our COVID educators. She is a local, lived here, grew up here. She just graduated this last year, and she is interested in pursuing studies in public health. So what's really good is that she wants to stay and get experience as a full inspector. So what's going well is she's asking to be trained in everything from the food to housing and everything. So we're really excited to have her on board. And what she'll be doing, she's going to be coordinating with the PD on enforcement in the evenings and at night on the weekends as well. And what's good is that as a fresh face, when you see Amy or me or John or Artel or somebody walking up to a restaurant, everyone knows who we are. When you see Maddie pull up, not a lot of people are going to recognize her at first. So I think it's going to be really, really good to just have that presence out in the evening. So thank you, Livy, for reminding me of that.
Thank you for that brief description. And also our other two COVID educators, Megan Rupp and Sky Flegg, were great over the summer, and they're wrapping up, yes, if not already wrapped up at this point.
Yes, I believe this is Sky's last week. She's going to UNH in the fall. Congratulations to Sky, and Megan has to get back to DC and go back to her normal life too.
Thank you, everyone. We'll turn to public comment for items that otherwise not are on our agenda for discussion. This is when anyone can raise and something for us, but don't necessarily expect comment. We'll get back to you on it. I see a hand raised from Megan Perry. Megan, you can come in and talk.
Thank you, Dawn. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go right ahead.
I'm asking for a personal reason, not for any other group that I may or may not be associated with. I'm wondering if the town has responded to either of the two letters sent out by Mass DEP to all public water supplies, offering a free PFAS testing analysis. And when I spoke with DEP the other day, they hadn't heard anything back yet. And so I just thought that was maybe something we could look into or put on an agenda. Along with that, the state's offered some grants and 0% interest loans that might be available should anything come up on test results. I thought it was kind of interesting since we haven't had the public water tested since 2013, and since then detection levels have changed what the state allows for, and just thought it would be wonderful if we got the testing done for free as a community, and if there were any issues we were able to take advantage of some of the funding provided for any kind of remediation. And I did ask some questions and got a reply, an automatic reply from the town PFAS assessment effort group. I was just curious who's on that, and is that something we could put on as an agenda item for a later meeting to talk about?
Thank you, Megan. And Libby has her hand up.
Just wanted to mention that Wanakama Water is in the process of arranging for testing of the public water supply. We expect that to be done in a couple of weeks. I see that Mark Willett is on, so he can respond further if needed. We had a kickoff meeting this afternoon with town staff regarding the contract we signed and the board approved recently with CDM Smith for the island-wide risk assessment. I'm sure we could give an update when we're just a little bit further down the road. We have some upcoming meetings scheduled about how we're going to handle public communications and specifically where things are going to start and what sort of information CDM Smith needs to conduct the assessment. So I don't know that we're ready immediately for a public review, but I think probably sometime mid to end of September we could do that.
Thank you. So stay tuned on that. I don't see any other hands up. So there's no new business that I'm aware of. Approval of minutes, warrants, and pending contracts. We have a couple of minutes, treasury warrants, and pending contracts. Can we take them all as one, or does anyone have any questions or changes? Christy?
I just had a question with the human services. Is that all going as a lump sum, whereas in past years it was quarterly, or is this just a quarterly installment?
These are the lump sums, and they are distributed as we go quarterly.
Thank you.
Anything else? Is there a motion? Oh, Jason, do you have a question?
Yeah, you said this is everything pending contracts together?
I was hoping we could take the minutes, the warrants, and the pending contracts as one motion, unless there's any changes or questions.
I just had a question on the sewer project for Surfside, just to, I think for the public, just to know what that is, where it came from. It's a big number, and when it'll be happening.
Thank you. Sure. So we had an original appropriation of $7.6 million for downstream improvements resulting from the Nantucket Harbor Shimo and Plus sewer extension project. This portion of it is for construction, and bidding and engineering oversight for the actual improvements that will be bid out. And the improvements include things in the Surfside Road area, such as increasing sewer line pipe size. There's at least one pump station, maybe more. I can't remember exactly how many, and other improvements that have resulted from that project.
Thank you.
One last thing. Some of it will be covered by the state revolving fund. We've made an application for it, but we're not sure what the interest rate will be yet. Anything I missed, Brian?
No, that covers everything.
Thank you. Anything else from anyone? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
1 through 3?
Yeah.
I'll second.
All those in favor by roll call. Jason Bridges?
Aye.
Melissa Murphy?
Aye.
Matt Fee?
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella?
Aye.
Okay, thank you all. Oh, Don Holgate, aye. Unanimous. Consent items. We have a request for approval of a pledge of license application for the restaurant at Easton Street, the Breeze Bar and Cafe.
I'll make a
Move
motion to
approval.
approve. Yeah, second.
All those in favor by roll call. Melissa Murphy?
Aye.
Matt Fee?
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella?
Aye.
Jason Bridges.
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Citizen departmental request, Sandy Peddles bike share. Amy, are you going to address that?
Yeah, I'm going to do a brief update. As we discussed last time, Sandy Peddles and Thomas Holt had submitted locations for a pared down version of the bike share program that got delayed until now because of COVID. Where we stand right now is I'm actually awaiting proof of insurance from him. Ken Beauregard reviewed the locations. We are phone tagged this afternoon, but I'll review with him. Those most were somewhat town or county located, with a couple that were not. So we're going to pair those out for him. So I'm just waiting for a status update from Mr. Holt, and then we'll proceed as long as insurance and all of that pairs up, start getting that set up for him as far as a temporary license and agreement, and go from there. I don't know if there's any other questions, but we're still, hopefully then by next meeting, we'll have the final package to show you, and it'll be hopefully getting started. Questions?
Anybody have any questions? Anybody else have comments? Okay.
Thank you.
Then we'll move on to request for approval and execution of documents with Mueller Nantucket Associates. These are grants of sewer easement. Ken is here to answer any questions. Sewer easements and dedication agreement for some new sewer pipes.
I'll be happy to answer any questions. What happened here is that there was an old sewer that North Mill Street is a private road. The people on both sides of the road put in an old sewer that tied into the town sewer. It had started to create problems. The town told them that they had to upgrade the sewer. They did that, and it was tested, and it meets our standards. And they're now giving the town an easement to be able to continue to use it, and also a sewer dedication agreement. You, as the select board, should accept the easement, and then you, as acting as the sewer commissioners, should approve the sewer dedication agreement.
Okay, so we'll do two separate motions.
Yes, please.
Forward to accept the easement. Would someone make that motion?
Moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor by roll call. Melissa Murphy.
Aye.
Matt Fee.
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella.
Aye.
Jason Bridges. Don Holgate, aye. Carries unanimously. Now acting as the sewer commissioners, we'll take a motion for the dedication agreement.
Moved.
Is there a second? Okay, all those in favor by roll call. Melissa Murphy.
Aye.
Matt Fee.
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella.
Aye.
Jason Bridges.
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. Carries unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you, Ken. And number 3 is off for this meeting, so we will move on to the town manager's report. I will turn it over to Wolfie.
Thank you very much. First off, we have end of year budget reports for fiscal 20 for the Sewer Enterprise Fund, Wannacomet Water and Sconset Water, starting with sewer. And Brian's going to take us through that.
Brian, do you want me to screen share?
Sure. If you wouldn't mind. Thank you, Erica. You can go to the summary page, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, right there. So as you can see, overall revenue was about just around $600,000 less than we had budgeted. We budgeted $8.5 million for the sewer for fiscal year 20. I have talked to David Gray pretty extensively about the reasoning behind some of the shortfall, primarily related due to mostly the inability for people, or the difficulty for people who have taken out permits to connect to the system due to the limitation on the amount of work that the contractors are able to do. We did experience, obviously some of this was related to COVID and not issuing permits, and obviously the shutdown at that time when we would have been able to potentially have additional sewer connections being added to the system. So it's not something that we're concerned about. I think that it's something that will start to kind of smooth out over time. And as a note, in the first month of the new fiscal year, being fiscal 21, we billed about $180,000 more than we did in the prior year, July. So I think that as we move through it, that it'll start to work itself out. On the revenue side, that really was probably the largest area that we experienced in terms of any impacts from COVID-19. So I think that overall, we are okay. We did collect a lot more in sewer privilege fee prepayments, so that certainly helped balance it out and allowed us to come within budget and overall. Expenses were under budget a substantial amount. We have been going through the budget just to kind of see what the impact from COVID-19 was. I know that there was certainly an increase in personal protective gear, which we may be eligible for some reimbursement from either FEMA or through the CARES Act. So that's an exercise that we're doing at the year-end close, following the guidance that's been delivered to us, not only from the auditors, but all the guidance from the state and FEMA on what's eligible and what we can do there. Also looking to see if there was any related personnel increased costs and overtime. And if that is the case, then we will try to recapture some of those funds as well. Overall, the sewer department, with the exception of the revenue, performed very well on a year-over-year basis, and has certainly started off the year in a fairly strong position into fiscal 21 with the increase in billing. So I do want to commend David and all of the staff who do a great job in monitoring all the expenses and doing a great job. And I'll be happy to entertain any questions if anyone has any.
Anyone have any questions? Matt?
Not really a question, just a comment. I think, and I just thought about it. I don't know. It was just something Brian said about new connections, et cetera. At some point, we aren't going to have those. It's either a downturn or it's just, so I think when we're doing budgeting, we have to think about how do we set up the fees and how do we set up the charges and things so we're not overly dependent on large amounts of growth. It's sort of, I think that's we're not going to answer today, and it's not even on this, but I think in general, if we could be figure it out so that we're great if we're static and the other is extra, then that's a better situation than counting on growth, which may or may not exist. So it's just a general comment.
And I can respond in a little bit to that. It is really a great question or comment and observation. And the work that we've been doing with Hazen and Sawyer on the rate analysis does take that into account. And throughout the next 5 years, it actually takes into account a potential for decrease in usage as we look at it. One of the things, just to make a point about some of the static and not relying on new growth, one of the things that we've been looking at is the flat fee. Is there a way to, not saying we're doing this right away, but is there a way to slowly increase it so we're recapturing more of the fixed cost of the system within that rate, and then the variable rate is really more dedicated to the variable costs that are associated with the running and operating the system. So it is something that we are looking at and certainly do recognize in the future, we will certainly see a slowdown in the number of connections.
Thank you. Should we move on to the next?
I think Mark is going to take us through Wanacom and Wisconsin.
Mark, can you hear me?
Hello.
Mark, I think you're still muted.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's good to kind of be with you guys, even if it's online. Haven't really been in a meeting for a while. Everything's been going good over here, though. As far as the end of the year, we did okay overall for the year. We started out, going pretty quick. To give you an idea what COVID did to our pumping here on the island, if you compared this April to last April, we were down about 24% in pumpage. May was down 29.2%. So it was those 2 months that really kind of pinched this last quarter. The funny thing is once we started to open up irrigation and construction kind of eased its way back in June, we were up 13% in pumping compared to last June. So, you're talking like a 42-43% swing in a month. And moving forward now, we're pumping a lot more water than we ever have. So it did slow down for 2 or 3 months in this last quarter, but we've picked up and made gains in June that helped us recover. Overall, we did pretty well. Matt, you brought up the new connections. We made 75,000 over what we thought we were going to on new connections. We missed the new connection number by 15 this year, partly due to some stuff that was going on at the big subdivision on Old South Road. They came in at the end of the year and put in a pretty substantial check for, I think, 10 or 12 new services. Other than that, revenues, thanks to Brian and his team, or expenses, thanks to Brian and his team, we kept a really close eye on it since March. They were a huge help. Again, I can't say enough about everything they've done for us. We were able to keep a lot of the expenses down, and we ended the year on a pretty good note. And I can take any questions if you like.
I can't see everybody. Are there any questions for Mark? Jason?
Mark, you answered all my questions. I was really curious on all these reports, how COVID had affected that last quarter, and you answered them all. Yep. It's down, and then it's catching back up. I think we're going to see that.
It's gone beyond. I know going into this new year we're in. July was one of the biggest we've ever had, and August right now is on pace to be the biggest August ever for us, anyway.
This is Matt, Mark. How much of that is we had a wet April, compared to average, and we've had a dry summer? How much of it is that, do you think?
So last April and this April, the rain was actually pretty close, the rainfall. May and June, we were a little drier than last year. This July and August has been dry, Matt, but we've had much drier years than this, believe it or not. 2005 was pretty dry. 2016 and 17 were kind of dry. It contributes a little bit, but when we're pumping, for example, through 18 days in August so far, 11 of them we've pumped over 4 million gallons a day. Last year we had maybe 5 days total in the summer that we did that. So I think it's a combination of climate. It's been dry, and I think a lot of people are here. And I think talking with David a little bit, I know he's not on tonight, but he has seen an increase in sewer flows too. So we kind of follow each other in that pattern.
This Sconset?
Yep, Sconset actually followed almost the same path as Wannacomet. It was the same thing for April and May as we started to see more people come and, the short-term rental coming back with the Airbnbs. Sconset made a good recovery in June as well. The thing about Sconset is it isn't going as crazy as town. It's not going to set records for June. It didn't, it's not going to for July and August, but overall, we did pretty well in Sconset. Revenues kind of thought, they were a little bit short, but we kept the expenses down, so we're all okay there. Again, with Brian and his team and the guidance from March on, we're able to cut back on expenses big time and started doing more and more on our own. So overall, Sconset ended up in a good place with a little bit of extra money as surplus. And there isn't, there's still a few subdivisions that are kind of in the works starting out there. But as you were saying, Matt, Sconset for us is a perfect model on what to do and how to operate without a lot of new connections. There hasn't been a lot of new connections out there. So when we look at rate structures and stuff like that, Sconset's a good place to look to figure that out, how to operate and survive without relying on all those new connections.
Anyone have any additional questions on Sconset numbers? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Mark.
All right, thank you, and thanks again to Brian and his finance team through this whole thing. They've been great.
Information Technology Department update. Karen?
Good evening, everybody. I have a PowerPoint presentation. Erica, are you putting this up or do you want me to?
Up to you. You tell me. I've got it.
I can do it.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I have to share my screen, don't I?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Can everybody see that? Okay, can everybody see the screen?
Yes, Karen.
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm here to update you on the EnerGov e-permitting system and the strategic plan focus area, efficient town operations, goal 2, invest in technology. In the packet, there are 2 short reports, but I've combined them both into a single PowerPoint presentation for tonight. First of all, I'm going to give an update on our EnerGov e-permitting project. Phase 1 has been in production since October of 2019. And that includes the back end of the system of permit workflows for health, wastewater treatment plant, and plus, as well as a mobile inspection app on the iPads. Inspectors bring their iPads out in the field and they enter the inspection data into the iPad, and then it uploads into the EnerGov system when they reconnect to the internet. So it saves a lot of time. Right now, permits are being sent in either via email or delivered or mail, and the office staff enters it manually, which brings us to phase 2, the Citizen Self-Service or CSS portal. This is an online portal that will allow our constituents to apply for their permits online and also pay for the permits online and pay for any fees online. This was originally scheduled to begin in March of 2020 and was postponed due to the pandemic. Our new kickoff date is or was August 11th through 13th. It was a 3-day week of remote sessions run by the Tyler Technologies development team and attended by all 3 departments and the IT department. This included a project overview, a software demonstration to show everybody what the portal will look like when it's finished, and gathering of information so that the development team at Tyler can begin the design of the online forms. And we also did a review of the online payment process, and the finance department participated in that. So our go live production date is scheduled for the week of December 4th. It's a pretty quick project schedule. And public forums will be planned for after that production date. I want to hold forums for the public to inform and educate them on the use of the CSS portal. And like I said, we're going to be doing that after the go live, so I don't really have a lot of detailed information as to what those are going to look like. I can take questions on EnerGov now, or we can wait till the end of the presentation.
I can't see everyone, but just speak out if you have a question. Well, I think this is really exciting.
Okay. So we'll go on to, it is very exciting. I mean, it's been a long time coming, and we had, a lot of hiccups along the way, and then COVID, and, trying to kick off this project in August when everybody's still trying to catch up and things are still kind of crazy was a huge effort on everyone's part. And I really want to thank the departments and department heads for allowing their staff to participate in this project at a really challenging time. So I can't say enough about everybody's dedication to this project. And it wouldn't be successful without them. So anyway, moving on. I was asked to provide an update on the focus area of efficient town operations, goal 2, invest in technology. The IT governance team met on August 6th to discuss this as one of the agenda items, and we came up with a few possibilities for each of these bullet points. Excuse me. So the first one is add public Wi-Fi within 1 mile of Pacific National Bank, and this would essentially cover the downtown area. So the simplest way to do this is just to put in basic Comcast business service in various areas around town to create hotspots. This would work the same way as the hotspot that is at Culture and Tourism and down at Children's Beach. There's a limited radius. People have to be pretty close to the building where the service is installed. And when you walk around downtown, you're going to be disconnecting from one hotspot and reconnecting into another one. So it wouldn't be seamless, but it is easy. It would require permission if we had to install these in private buildings from the building owners to install the service, mount the equipment, and maintain it. The second, and a little bit more sophisticated, is something called a wireless mesh network. This is a series of wireless antennas that would look very similar to the top picture. This is just one example. Some of the newer wireless antennas are a little bit sleeker, but they still have to be mounted on buildings or poles around town within a certain radius of each other in order to communicate together. There would be one of these antennas would be physically directly connected to the fiber backhaul, probably down at the town hall building at 16 Broad Street. A third possibility is what's known as smart streetlight technology. And this is a new technology that would be a long-term solution and would have to be obviously done in collaboration with DPW. It essentially is a mesh network, but the antennas are integrated into the street lamps, so it's a little bit more visually appealing. And if you look at the lower picture, that's an example of what a smart street lamp might look like. And at the very top, up here, what just looks like a decorative point is really the integrated antenna built right into the smart street lamp. And like I said, this would be a long-term solution. All of these solutions, in order to work properly and efficiently, would require some infrastructure. We'd probably have to run additional fiber from 16 Broad Street to the 4 Fairgrounds Data Center, because what we have in place right now is probably not sufficient to handle the additional traffic, especially during peak summer months and our town traffic. And then, like I said, it would if we had to utilize any space on private buildings, we would have to obtain easements and agreements with those building owners. Secondly, adding public Wi-Fi at Surfside and Jetty's beaches. Again, we could do something very similar to what Janet Schulte has at Children's Beach and just put basic Comcast business service at the concession buildings. Again, this has limited radius, and it probably wouldn't reach all the way down to the beaches, especially Surfside, and all the way across the parking lots. So the goal really would be to extend this down to the beach and across the parking lots to provide more complete coverage, both for, to allow people to connect into the Wi-Fi, and also for safety reasons in emergencies. This would involve adding an antenna, though, on the beach. And that would have to go on some kind of a pole, because the antennas need a line of sight direct back to the main service. So it would probably involve some kind of PVC conduit underground for electrical wiring to provide electrical service to the antenna, and some type of a pole for the antenna. If you look at the picture at the bottom of the screen, this is just a concept drawing of what public Wi-Fi might look like on a beach area. Obviously, this isn't our beach. And the next slide is the larger concept drawing, courtesy of Cambian Networks, who specializes in these types of solutions, about what a public Wi-Fi in a public area might look like. And if you notice, these green dots are the identify where the antennas are located. So some of them are actual antennas on top of the buildings or down on a pole here, and others look to be smart street lamps spaced around. And then they all tie back into the main network where the fiber backhaul would be somewhere here, or the connection to the internet. Next, we have public Wi-Fi across the island. Now, this really depends on what the intent of this solution is. Are we looking at providing wireless access to the internet the same way we are looking at the beaches in downtown? If we are, that would involve defining areas around the island to create multiple mesh networks in different island areas. And so it would include Wi-Fi antennas placed on poles high enough to transmit to each other. One antenna in each area would have to be connected to the fiber backhaul. So this would probably involve running additional fiber to reach back to our main data center. We could do this on poles aerially or underground. And it's something to think about. This would be probably, personally, I would do the town and the beaches before I would do the overall island. Or are we looking at providing internet service to private citizens? If we're looking at that as a solution, then we're moving into the territory of a municipal light plan, or MLP, which is essentially a utility that would be run in the same way as the water and sewer company. These are funded with property taxes or bonded in order to cover the initial infrastructure cost, because the infrastructure to build out a network like this would be significant. Westfield, Massachusetts is an example that I'm using because they developed an MLP called Whip City Fiber, and they issued a $15 million bond to construct their network. And now they're in the process of connecting businesses and citizens to their internet service. Bear in mind that if this was something that we wanted to look at, we would be in direct competition with any existing internet service providers already on the island. And last is expand and improve cell phone service across the island. This one is really going to take more research. Other than allowing these carriers to add more antennas of their own around the island, I'm not really sure what we as a municipality could do to improve cell service. So that one's going to probably take research and discussion with the carriers. And that is all I have for tonight. So if anyone has any questions, please let me know.
Unshare the screen so I can see everyone.
Yeah, I'm trying to get out of my
Mary Longacre has her hand up. Mary, can I go to you?
I can't log her in until Karen stops.
Oh, okay.
You just have to give me a second.
Okay, I got it. Sorry, it took me a minute.
Okay, Mary Longacre.
Hi, thank you. So a couple of questions there. The first one being, I attended a presentation, I think at the Cape Cod Technology Council earlier this year, where Open Cape, which is a nonprofit fiber optic internet provider on the Cape, said that they had investigated extending their network to Martha's Vineyard, because Martha's Vineyard doesn't have a cable underground or under the water the way that we do. And that at the same time, the potential provider for that cable said that with the equipment in the area, it would be easy to add a line to Nantucket. Could Karen tell us what the capacity is of our current line compared to the ambitions that were just described? And then just a side note, any infrastructure on the beach particularly somewhere like Jetty's Beach where it floods a lot, I would be very concerned about electrical lines underground. And I would really not be in favor of putting poles on the beach. That doesn't appear particularly historic to me. Thank you.
Okay, Mary, I'm going to start with Open Cape. I have been in contact with Open Cape, and they are in the process of providing some feasibility and cost information to the town to provide that service. So that answers your first question or comment about Open Cape. As far as the capacity, I don't have that information. I would have to check with Comcast or about what the existing fiber capacity is under the sound right now. And as far as your questions or comments about the beaches, I do agree that putting poles on the beach is not very historical, and you make a very good point about putting electrical service underground. So if we're really going to seriously look at something like that, we might have to look at different types of options. Perhaps solar or some other type of way of providing service to the antennas.
Thank you. And let me just add, if I may, Madam Chair, getting better quality, high-speed internet service on the island should be a high priority. I've seen a lot of complaints about service being dropped. I upgraded my service, fortunately, last year, but I still have issues. We're all using the internet much more than we did just 6 months ago. And I think that it's important to our success as a community that we are able to maintain connections to the rest of the world. Getting more service and a higher quality service should be a really top priority. Thank you.
Kristen?
Thank you. Kind of going off Mary's comments, I was wondering kind of what are the timelines on some of these goals? Like, are these kind of 1 year, 3 year, 6 months? Just kind of thinking with the school going remote, and I know that, the island wide is the most difficult, but what would the timeline look like to get some of these implemented?
At this point, I did not really get that far as timelines, but putting in, let's say, for example, let's take the downtown mesh network. Other than, we would need to obviously obtain permits and permissions to install these devices. I would say probably optimistically 6 months, probably a year. In improving the actual service to the mainland, there is fiber in place. And if Open Cape can bring in more, we would have more fiber. But a lot of the issue is the service that goes direct to the consumer private homes and some of the businesses is on what's known as Comcast Business is on a shared copper line. So when it gets very busy, you're sharing that service with everybody else, and you are, it gets slow. We all know that. The school and the town have something called an EDI circuit, which is a direct fiber link. So it ties directly into the fiber that goes under the sound. And it's a lot more reliable, but it's significantly more expensive. I don't know if we could look into something like that to try to improve things. That would also be part of that research and that feasibility. But as far as timelines, I think the next step would be to just probably think about which option do we want to look at first and where, and then start on cost analysis and feasibility studies, and then design. I know that doesn't really answer your question exactly, but.
No, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, good.
Thank you, Karen. Jason had his hand up, and then I have Rick Atherton as his hand.
So thank you, Mary, for some of your comments about finding ways to have higher quality internet service and faster. I think it's going to give us so many advantages in so many ways, private sector, public, everything. And so I'm glad that it's on the table and we're looking at it, whether it's Open Cape or some of the things that Karen just suggested. I really think we should try to find a way to do the municipal light plan, even if it's for the mid-island area. We've seen really quick how important it, just from COVID and this pandemic, how important it is for everyone to have access, and not everyone does have access. A lot of us think like, well, I mean, everybody has an internet connection. Well, not necessarily. And having something that's provided to everyone, and I don't know how we would fund it, but I think it's worth looking into that. I think, Karen, you said it's almost like a utility. It'd be, taxpayers would have to fund it. I don't know how we would charge it, but I think having access, at least for the mid-island, I think that makes sense it's a very worthy endeavor for us to look into. Thanks.
I'm going to go to Rick Atherton. Rick? Oh, did I lose him? Rick, go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate the conversation, and one of the things I've always felt the town did a great job in was transparency, really in terms of our documents on the available on the internet to the public. But I have just sort of a general observation that I suspect others have sensed as well. Maybe 2 years ago, something happened to the organization structure and the ability to, click through to get to the documents you're looking for. And I'll give you an example. If we wanted to find the reports filed by candidates for public office, we used to be able to go to the town clerk, click on public reports, and then click on and that would bring up a link which had all the names of all the candidates over 10 years. You click on that and you got to where you wanted to find their reports. It's just not that easy. Something has happened to change that ability of the public to quickly and easily access specific documents. So I may be the only one, but I suspect I'm not, Dawn. So someone, I hope, would look into that. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Rick. Matt?
Yeah, I think I'm not a big fan of Wi-Fi on the beaches. I think maybe we cover it with cell phone, better towers for safety. But I think there should be some places, even Surfside, et cetera, where people can go and don't have to be hooked up to their phones. I think it's a little crazy, but that's, I'm 60 years old, so maybe I'm showing my age. What's the cost for Comcast Business to the town in those places? Do they charge the town the same they charge us?
Matt? So we purchase right off the state contract, and it's a state contract pricing scheme that we utilize from Comcast.
Okay, yeah. So there is an expense to put one at the Surfside Shack and one somewhere else and one somewhere else. They're each a separate connection.
Correct, and right, and there is a discount because it's negotiated as a state contract. We don't pay for installation costs like a private customer might. So.
Right. A couple other comments. I think right now I'm getting woken up once a night with a call because my alarms are being triggered. They're being triggered because they run through Comcast, and it's very busy. Like you're saying, they're going through a copper line or something instead of a direct line. I think that could do a world of good for everyone here who's on it, because right now it's, the equipment, the latency and the equipment on the other side is nowhere up to the task of what we're pushing through it right now, according to my IT guy. So, that could help us. Municipal light program or a, group internet, like some places have done it and it saves them money. There's an initial cost, but then the cost of once you've set it up, there's not the profit coming out. If you have a nonprofit without the profit coming out and you've done it properly to begin with, the savings are in the millions of dollars a year category. So we shouldn't, we should really dig into the numbers and not be scared of a $15-20 million upfront if it's saving everybody on the island $50 a month. I mean, it's sort of kind of, or $20 a month, whatever the numbers end up being. I think I sent something to the board about a half a year ago from North Dakota or somewhere, and they had the best internet in the US, and it was a small town who set it up themselves, and it was pretty incredible. So we should be thinking about that. And that's about it. Thanks.
Okay.
Christy?
I just wanted to follow up a couple other comments of what was said by other board members. Just thinking about our beaches, I agreed with Mary Longacre about maybe not putting visible structures, but I do think the places where we have concession stands, we want to be the best landlords, and we have tenants that are trying to do business there. So trying to bring internet there so that they can have the best business model that they can is something that we want to think about. And I just wanted to echo that. I agree with Jason and Matt about looking into the municipal light plan. I think it's something worth at least investigating and getting the cost benefit analysis. Thanks.
Okay, so I will definitely do more research on the municipal light plan, and I do agree about the concession stands. And if we are able to actually run fiber from the concessions into the town network, we could significantly improve service to those concession stands. And also, it would also have the secondary benefit of benefiting the natural resources building that's there, and the tennis people from the school, because they could tie into it as well.
I also worry a little bit from a safety standpoint when I'm out at places in Cisco that aren't the lifeguarded portions, that with no phone service, you really can't do a safety call if an incident were to happen. Anything else, Matt?
And my point on that, Don, I think it might be easier to, to get a couple decent cell towers, along there might be an easier deal than trying to get Wi-Fi to cover a whole beach. So we could cover we have to look at the cost benefit.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. Anything else on this topic? Sewer department? Force main?
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. It's just as a quick follow-up to Karen, and she and Greg and I can speak about this later. We may need to hire a consulting firm to advise on our options of all of these things. It is not going to be quick. With regard to the storage of files on the town website, we have a limited storage capacity, and all of the archived documents are on there. It does take a couple of more clicks to access them, but they are there. The sewer department. Okay, so sewer director is not able to be here tonight, as we know, and this is really more of an announcement than anything else. At your meeting on September 9th, our engineer for this project, the third sewer force main, which, as you know, resulting from the January 4th, 2018 sewer force main break, we subsequently at this past town meeting, 2020 annual town meeting, approved $32 million for the design and construction of a new sewer force main, a third sewer force main, and we would probably discontinue one of the other existing ones. We're going to get an update as to the route, the recommended route, as well as an alternatives analysis. So just wanted to let you know that, and we will be inviting some other boards to that meeting, including the Planning Board and the Nantucket Historical Commission. That's it on that item.
Thank you. Select board reports and comments. Review and potential adoption of 2021 annual town meeting and election dates.
So Eric is going to screen share a very preliminary draft timeline. This is not final. I'm not really asking for any input on it tonight. I'm more focusing tonight on the date of the annual town meeting, proposed date, and annual town election, which Eric, you can just go to the end of this. Would be Monday, April 5th for the 2021 annual town meeting, and Tuesday, April 13th for the annual town election. We looked at a Saturday, that Saturday, which would be, I guess, April 3rd. And that didn't work because of religious holiday issues. So this is the proposed date. And if the board would, if you agree with it, if you would endorse that, we can get our timeline going and start getting some public outreach out about it.
Anyone have any concerns with the date? I'm good with that. Okay, carry on.
Do we need a motion for that, Louis?
I think so. Yeah, please.
Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, by roll call, Melissa Murphy.
Aye.
Matt Fee.
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella.
Aye.
Bridges.
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. That passes unanimously.
Great, thank you very much. I have confirmed this with the school. There was some initial concern that they may not be able to accommodate a weekday, but they can.
Great. Number 2, review action on traffic safety committee recommendations. Arthur Gasparo is here to walk us through these, I believe. There are 4 recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. These are recommendations from meetings over the past couple of months of traffic safety, which these are our, like you guys, our first meetings conducted through Zoom. So it's taken a little bit longer. But the first one that is before you, let me open my own packet, is the curb cut on 24 Union Street, which would eliminate essentially 1/2 of an on-site parking space. And these owners came back to 2 different hearings that we had and brought in additional information. Not all of the stuff they submitted is in your packet, but to summarize, they showed that they would create a brick parking area adjacent. The neighbor has a brick parking area, and be able to park on their property by the elimination of, I think it was about 8 feet or so of a yellow line. And there's a fairly long strip of contiguous available parking as you move to the north towards Main Street there. So the policy generally by traffic safety has been that if there could be a net gain in spaces on a property by creating on-site spaces. That is, you would either create 2 if you eliminate 1, then it would be something that would typically be recommended if there aren't some other extenuating circumstances. This one was a little bit different where they're only creating 1 space, but they're also not taking away a full space. And I thought, and I think the work group felt that the property owners made a compelling case for this curb cut, and small change to a yellow line wouldn't negatively impact, public on-street parking, and would get their car off of the street. And so with that, I'd be happy to try to address questions or concerns that you may have with this application.
Any questions or comments on A? Matt?
I'll move approval on A. I'm fine with A.
Is there a second? All those in favor by roll call, Melissa Murphy.
Aye.
Matt Fee.
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella.
Aye.
Jason Bridges.
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. That passes unanimously.
Thank
Should we
you.
go on?
And I would add on that, and all of these, the curb cut ones, they still have to go through the DPW process, but needed to get this in order to finalize that. The next one is for a curb cut at 9 Westchester Street, which would eliminate a full parking space. This particular case is a bit different. They already have one on-street parking, off-street parking area on the west side of the house, and they're looking to create another driveway on the east side, and they're also before the planning board for this matter, or they were a few nights ago. And in this case, as far as traffic safety goes, it did seem to still meet the policy that there would be essentially one space lost and two gained off street. I think other piece of discussion on this is that there already is one other driveway. So I do think there is some perhaps policy considerations for the board on this particular one, though for the traffic safety work group to be consistent, I think that it met the policy and consistent with other applications of creating two with only the loss of one. The other traffic safety consideration on Westchester Street in particular is that being the narrowness of the road with the on-street parking, as you're all familiar with, when you do create some no parking zones, it creates a bit of a refuge for one vehicle to pull over while the other vehicle passes. And so I think both of those reasons are why traffic safety supported this application and would defer to the board for any further discussion.
Jason?
If this didn't pass planning board, where does it come in if we approve it? How does it go forward? Or is our vote moot if planning board didn't vote it through?
Sure. So they're subject to a special permit for a second curb cut. So without the second curb cut, they wouldn't be able to construct without the special permit, they wouldn't be able to construct the driveway, I believe, regardless of your action. And similarly to what I said at the beginning, the application would also go to DPW and need to meet their requirements for ADA and drainage.
Erica?
I just want to note that Art is correct about that. This has been on hold at the planning board until the select board makes its decision. And if you vote no, then obviously it's going to die at the planning board.
Matt?
Yeah, I think this would be a really bad mistake to do. We've lost a lot of the side yards downtown have become parking yards. The beautiful gardens have been turned into brick covered so that every single car that can be, shoehorned into a property is shoehorned. I walk that street fairly often. I just think that we'd be setting a really poor precedent. We should be figuring out our, demand management and parking so these neighbors don't have to ruin their own yards, and ruin the whole ambiance downtown. It's just, this is exactly what we should not be doing. So I will not support it.
Comment. I would be fine with the double parking area if the other parking space was being eliminated. Putting two driveways on this small of a lot, I don't think is appropriate. And but I can see that, and there's precedent because we did it down the way to do a double width parking area, but the other one should go away if they want to do that. There shouldn't be three cars parked across the front of the house.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
It did go forward at the planning board meeting. What night? Monday night. And there was extensive discussion that I believe was along the lines of what you were mentioning, but I can't tell you what the outcome was of that from Monday night, but they did present it.
Okay, that's interesting because I was told it was on hold. You wouldn't be able to eliminate that other parking space in your vote. Your purview right now is only on the proposed double.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, my understanding that it was denied 3-2 at the planning board. So even if I agree with Dawn getting rid of the 1 and 2, but if we can't do that according to Erica, then I would say deny it, see what happens with the other one, and then bring it back.
Is that a motion?
Yes, but
I mean, could you frame it something like denying it unless, but we would consider it again if the other space was eliminated?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
So sorry, motion to deny, but the applicant come back again if they eliminate the parking space, the single parking space on the other side.
Correct. Is there any further discussion?
I'm not sure. I'm not a big fan of the double parking downtown. I didn't do it at my house when I had we took it away. I think it's twice as many vehicles. It's twice as long for someone walking down the sidewalk on this street. The cars don't stay inside their parking spaces. They park right across the sidewalk. You know, the people that are renting are coming with, you know, Tahoes and other stuff. It'll be two cars across the sidewalk. I'm not going to vote for it, but I understand where you're heading with it, but I think we should be tighter downtown than we have been.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to a vote. Melissa Murphy?
Aye.
Matt Fay?
No.
Christy Carantella?
Aye.
Jason Bridges?
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. That's 4-1. 4-1 denial, actually.
So you just kind of voted for it, Matt.
Well, I want to deny it, but I wanted to make a point that, my point is I'm denying it, but I want to I guess I made it the wrong way, Jason. You're right.
Well, you voted.
I admit I'm wrong.
I know.
I deny it, but I'm not going to vote. I'll abstain then because I don't want to vote for the, I don't want to vote for the trade in the doubles.
Okay, mark that down as a 4-0 vote. Let's move on to C.
So item C is the extension of a yellow line by approximately 5 feet to facilitate a property owner being able to get in and out of their property. And there's been some discussion in the past year concerning the parking along Mill Street. And I believe that part of the yellow line changes may have been made last year. And this is to try to make one small incremental change to assist this owner in their ability to for ingress and egress to their property.
Any comments? Matt?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Go to a vote. Melissa Murphy?
Aye.
Matt Fay?
Aye.
Christy Carantella?
Aye.
Jason Bridges?
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. Carries unanimously. Moving on to D.
So this is Traders Lane, which is the one-way street immediately adjacent to the Summer Street Church, up off of near Pleasant Street. And in this case, there's been parking along the sidewalk next to the church for quite some time, and I think there was some ambiguity in terms of posted signage enforcement, where parking was allowed and not allowed. And the work group felt, and some of the abutters spoke at the hearing, and felt that by adding a couple of yellow lines, that it would clarify where parking could still be allowed and where it shouldn't happen. And essentially what's shown on the sketch before you, the yellow line from the corner extends. There's a door to the side of the church. So it would go from the corner of Summer to just past that first door, so that, again, ingress and egress to the church could be maintained, and that turning radiuses onto Traders Lane could still be accomplished, and then help for enforcement for the officers by having the yellow line there. and then maintain essentially 2 spaces, I believe it would be, of parking. And then as you get to the other corner of the church, there's another doorway which goes to the lower level of the church. And there's a driveway for the next property at 3 Traders Lane. Now that driveway isn't fully conforming, or I believe fully permitted. However, it is an off-street spot where the owner has been using. And I think there was some confusion as to whether or not that was a spot that should be ticketed or not. And I think the intent of the yellow line was that it would make sure that nobody's parking in front of the door. And then if the owner is parking, in that driveway, he's got to be in the driveway.
Any comments, questions, motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call: Melissa Murphy.
Aye.
Kathy.
Aye.
Stu Garantella.
Aye.
Lisa Bridges. John Holgate, aye. Carries unanimously. Art, thanks for being here tonight.
Sure. Thank you. Good night.
3, continued discussion update on racial equity, race relations task force and community forum. Rachel is not here tonight. She did just send in a little update. Just the RFP is in its final draft, and it's been circulated and will be circulated to the select board shortly. And they're going forward, getting the committee together for the interviews for the candidates for the position, and working through some questions and so forth in regard to that. And I think there will be more to come. And anybody else have any, Jason?
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know, our board members and the public, that the public hearing to rename Coon Street is our next board meeting, which is September 9th. So that's an official public hearing, and we'll go through that whole process.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, we do have committee reports, and then I did, before we go to that, we would like to recognize that we lost a member of the community, Joe McLaughlin, this past week, who was a finance committee member and on the abatement advisory, as well as many other volunteer organizations within the community. But those were the 2 positions on the town that he held. And I was hoping that we could have a moment of silence to remember him. Thank you, everyone. Committee reports. Does anybody have anything, Jason?
Just a quick one. Capcom has started up our weekly meetings, Capital Program Committee, and we're kind of digging into, each year we layer on top of the other one and make it a little better. It's been pretty robust the last 3 or 4 years, and we're just trying to really find that, the timeline between getting everything to FinCom, so they can have time to look at it, all our information of Capcom from the town, and we're trying to work through that and making some progress. I think last year we tried to, I think maybe every other week we put it for the select board, we put it on the agenda and just kind of gave an update of what big projects we're looking at. That was helpful. So we'll continue to do that this year.
Anybody else? Christy?
Thank you. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund met yesterday and reviewed the process with the RFP and kind of the marketing strategy behind that. So as Tucker mentioned earlier, we have a public session, next Thursday at 5:30 for anybody who wanted to find out more information. We also got to approve a closing cost assistance program loan to help a new Covenant buyer. It was very exciting and kind of that feel-good feeling of helping another Nantucketer be able to maintain housing on Nantucket and stability. So if anybody wants to watch that 1-minute clip, it was very nice to help this family through. And then we approved the Covenant Formation Assistance Program, which is going to be facilitated by Housing Nantucket, and that's going to help homeowners and landowners who are interested in kind of finding out about the covenant program, doing the surveys and things like that. So there's up to $10,000 to help with those fees if you're interested in, subdividing or selling a portion of your land for the covenant program. So a lot of really good things going forward. Tucker also presented the budget, and I know that I've been on the board for the past year, and I was on Neighborhood First Advisory Committee, and we got to really see the strategic plan of the Affordable Housing Trust and how we're going to stay in safe harbor. And then Tucker provided kind of the budget and numbers behind it. And we're really lucky to have that $20 million that town meeting approved. And I think hopefully soon we'll see the housing bill go through at the state, and we might have additional revenue source. But we actually have a plan and dollars behind that plan that is just seems really solid and strong, and makes it it feels good that we're moving in the right direction of our strategic plan, and we kind of set that goal and we're seeing it go through. So huge kudos to Tucker and the Affordable Housing Trust for all the work they've done the last couple of years.
Thank you, Christine. Anything else? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call: Melissa Murphy.
Aye.
Matt Fee.
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella.
Aye.
Jason Bridges.
Aye.
Don Mulcahy, aye. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Good 2 weeks.